Hello and welcome to our flipped video lesson 1.11, Three Great Thinkers. You can always check out the recordings. Obviously they're not posted now, but in the PDF version the recordings will be there, so you can always click on a link if you'd like to watch this again. Learning objectives of this lesson. Define philosophy, monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, and anarchy. Identify Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle and their key ideas and achievements. So our table of contents, we're going to talk about philosophers and government. Your student guide pages 290 and then 293 to 295. That page 290 is actually from the previous lesson student guide pages, but we do need to fill in some information there. There will be some important vocabulary to help you with the understanding of this lesson, and then your Human Odyssey reading pages 330 to 336. And again, just remember these slides are posted in your OMS if you ever need to go back to take a look at them. So lesson 1.11, Introduction, Great Thinkers. The Athenians loved to learn. They found all kinds of study worthwhile, and they asked questions about everything, about how the world works, about the nature of right and wrong, and about the value of government. Among the greatest thinkers of ancient Greece were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Many of their ideas have influenced our thinking today. So go ahead and turn to page 290. This is where I was talking about we're going back to the previous lesson pages, and we're going to fill in some of that information right down there about in the Learn section, anarchy, aristocracy, democracy, monarchy, and philosophy. So a monarchy has a king and a queen, emperor or empress, and the ruling position can be passed on to the ruler's heirs. In some traditional monarchies, the monarch has the absolute power. But a constitutional monarchy, like the UK, also has a democratic government that limits the monarch's control. So if you just had to put a couple words about monarchy, it would be basically a monarchy is ruled by one person. So it's ruled by a king or a queen. Okay, when we think of monarchy, we think of kings and queens. Aristocracy is a class of persons holding exceptional rank and privileges, especially the heredity of nobility. A government or state ruled by aristocracy, elite or privileged upper-class government, by those considered to be the best or most able people in the state. So an aristocracy is ruled by a few individuals. They're ruled by a few of higher or elite people. It's somewhat similar to an oligarchy. A democracy. In a democracy, the government is elected by the people. Everyone who is eligible to vote has a chance to have their say over who runs the country. It is distinct from governments controlled by a particular social class or group, which would be like an aristocracy or an oligarchy, or by a single person, which would be like a despotism, dictatorship, or monarchy. So a democracy is determined either directly or through elected representatives. So the definition of a democracy would basically be a rule by representatives. And then anarchy. Anarchy is a situation where there is no government. This can happen after a civil war in a country when a government has been destroyed and rival groups are fighting to take its place. Anarchists are people who believe that government is a bad thing in that it stops people organizing their own lives. And so basically definition of an anarchy would be a rule by a mob, because there's really no rule at all. It's kind of chaos or chaotic. And then philosophy is the study of truth, knowledge, and the things of fundamental importance in life. And this kind of leads us into our main part of this lesson. So go ahead and turn to page 294 in your student guide. There's some questions there that I want you to kind of look over and ponder. And we're going to go ahead and watch a video. I do like to try and keep these flip videos within a 10-minute mark. This one is definitely going to go over. This video in itself is about 11 minutes long, but it's got some great information about Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So go ahead, like I said, and open your student guide to page 294, and you can fill in those questions as you're watching this video. There are no right or wrong answers.
Hey guys, welcome to Hip Hughes History as we take a look in this episode at the Greek philosophers, the big boys, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. We're coming to get you. So if you're a kid in school, you have found the right video. And if you're a lifelong learner or if you're cray-cray on the internet, you're welcome to watch as well. So we're going to go giddy up for the learning right now and go get her done. All right, guys, why don't we start with Socrates, because he's the first one. And not much is known about his life, everything that we know, because the dude didn't write anything down. I was like the smartest guy ever, not write anything down. Because he liked to talk a lot, he liked to ask a lot of questions, but he didn't like to write stuff down. So what we do know about him, we're going to know from his student, Plato, because Plato wrote everything down in what were called dialogues, which were a recollection or an imaginary conversation that he's having with his teacher, Socrates. But I'm getting off track. Now, Socrates, it's thought, is born near the city-state of Athens around 469 BCE in the golden age of Greece. This is where people are, learning and growing and building and sculpting, and there's democracy. It's a wonderful world. Now, he's born in moderate means. His mother was a midwife. His father was a sculptor. It's thought that he was a soldier at a certain point who fought very valiantly with a lot of courage, saved a lot of lives, did a lot of great things. But then he wants to be a philosopher. Now, a philosopher is basically somebody, it literally means lover of wisdom, who is seeking out answers to truth. They're seeking out answers about the existence of life or about knowledge in different subject areas or value or reason. And at that time period, most philosophers were called sophists. And sophists like Protagoras, who was one of the more famous ones of his day, were really people that were paid teachers. They were people that believed there was no universal truth. There was really only man, and that man was the measure of all things. And Socrates kind of disagrees with that. He believes there's a universal truth. Now, the story is there is an oracle at Delphi that informs one of Socrates' friends to tell him that he's the smartest dude of the land. And Socrates is like, there's no way I'm the smartest guy. So he starts going around to the leaders and to the important people of Athens to kind of question them about what they know about life. And he's figuring he'll find out that there's got to be someone smarter than him. And he starts doing what's called the Socratic method. He starts asking these people questions when they tell them things that he knows. And he starts to find out through this Socratic method that these dudes really don't know what they're talking about. So he ends up figuring out that he is the smartest person, not because he knows anything, but that he knows that he really doesn't know anything. Two of the more famous quotes that are attributed to Socrates really sum him up, and they are, "An unexamined life is not worth living." And the second quote is, "True knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing. Only thing I really know is I don't know anything at all." And then he starts after that really just kind of being what's called a get-fly. He's a social critic. He's messing with people. He's doing Q&A. He's walking around asking people about beliefs that they have held forever, and he's trying to show them that they might be wrong. They should be looking for universal truth rather than accepting the status quo, and that's going to land him in hot water. He's trying to root out ignorance. He believes that false beliefs are dangerous, that if you believe that a car won't kill you if you cross in front of it, you're in big, big trouble. And if you believe that the root of all happiness is money, you're in big, big trouble. So he's not really trying to lecture to people. He's not trying to tell them, I know stuff and you don't. He's using the Socratic method of questioning people to make them examine themselves and their own beliefs so he can expose truth. They can expose truth to themselves. But like I said before, he's in big, big trouble, and he's going to get arrested, and he's charged with 2 crimes. Heresy, that he's corrupting the young people's minds with all of these questioning. And the second is that he has violated the gods. So now he's in big, big trouble. And now it's a democracy, so they had a jury. How about that? There was about 500 people it's thought to be on Socrates' jury, and they hold this big trial. And at the end of the day, he's found guilty by 30 votes. That's it, 30 votes. And he was actually asked, what do you think your punishment should be? And Socrates replied something to the effect, I think you should give me free food for the rest of my life because, I'm a gift to you people. What are you talking about? He also had an opportunity to escape, as Frank Crito had arranged that he would be able to get out of Dodge. He'd be able to get out of Athens, and Socrates says, no, 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 no. Number one, I put you in danger. Number two, where am I going to go? Because I'm not going to shut up my big mouth. I'm just going to get in trouble somewhere else. Number three, if I fear death, then what does that say about me? That I know something about death? I know nothing. So I'm not going to do that. And number 4, there's a social contract here. I'm part of Athens society. I'm a law and order kind of guy. A jury of my peers has found me guilty. I'm going to take the hemlock. I'm going to take the poison. I'm going to die. And that's what he did. It's thought that his last words were thought to be something to the effect to his friend that we owe a rooster to the god of medicine for what he has given me, that now his soul would be free. So that's the very basis of Socrates. You just really want to say, the only thing I know is that I don't know anything, and we can figure it out if we ask good questions. All right, our second Greek philosopher, batter up, is going to be Plato. Plato is going to be the student of Socrates, and he is going to write everything down. A number of dialogues that he wrote and other famous writings such as the Republic. He's also going to leave behind a great university called the Academy of Athens, which existed for hundreds of years, and that's going to be the first institution in Western civilization of higher learning. He believed it was the job of society to, through the Socratic method, to enlighten people enlighten themselves, and that to have a great society, more people needed to be enlightened. He believes in a sense, a utopian society. Some people would say, hey, Plato, you're being too idealistic, wanting all these great things in terms of happiness and a great society and perfect friends and great beauty. And he would say, no, that what we need to do is envision form. What is a perfect society? What is beauty? What is a great friendship? And we need to have a rational plan to get there. One of his most famous writings was about something called the cave, an allegory in the Republic. And it's basically a description of how he sees society. He says that imagine if society was living in a cave, a dark cave chained to the floor, and all they had was a little fire that cast shadows on the wall. And that they would live there for centuries looking at these shadows, and they would develop great theories and wisdom and intelligence and knowledge about those shadows. And then one day somebody would figure out, I can crawl out of the cave. They'd crawl out of the cave, and there would be the glorious sun shining upon life itself. And this person would be amazed. They would see things they never thought ever existed. They would be a little bit closer to seeing true reality. Not all of it, but some of it. They'd then crawl back in the cave, and they would tell everybody, you people don't know what you're talking about looking at those silly shadows. I've seen more. I'm telling you that this is reality. I'm closer to reality than you'll ever be. And then they kill them. And this is kind of an analogy of what it's like to be somebody who's enlightened, to be a philosopher, somebody who thinks about things versus most people who don't think about things. So he wasn't a big fan of democracy. He believed democracy was kind of like mob rule, like the people in the cave that didn't know what they were talking about were running everything. He believes in something called the philosopher king theory, that the only people who should be leading should really be people that were these people that asked these big questions, that were seeking answers, trying to get closer to truth, and that would be the best way to guide society. So that's why he started the academy, in order to train people in the art of thinking and in knowledge and in wisdom, so they could create a better society for the generations that followed. He even got in big trouble because he would point to Sparta and he would say, look, they have a truth they know of, which is the military. They have a vision. They want to have the best military. Everything they do, they plan to have a great military. And guess what? They have a great military and they whooped us. So why don't we do the same thing? Instead, our objectives will be truth and honor and justice. And then we can get to that through rational thinking and planning. It was said that when Plato met Socrates, after he was introduced to the Socratic method and learned a little bit, he burned all of his previous writings because he was so out of whack before he met Socrates. All right, guys, our last of the great Greek philosophers is going to be Aristotle, who was called the master, the great thinker, the philosopher. When you're called the philosopher, you must be pretty good at philosophy. He's born in 384 BCE, and at the age of 18, he goes to the great Academy of Athens, where he is a student of Plato's. And of course, he's going to be exposed in all of the different disciplines at that time period, and he's going to excel. It's said that he was the best of Plato's student, and he stays there till he's 37, when Plato Plato passes away in 343 BCE. At that time, Aristotle goes to become a tutor, probably the highest paid tutor in all of the universe, tutoring Alexander the Great. How great is it to tutor Alexander the Great? And he must have done a really great job, because Alexander the Great goes on to conquer the Western world. Alexander the Great is said to reward Aristotle with all of these awesome resources, where Aristotle's then going to go back to Athens and start what's called Lyceum, a new school with a great library that's borrowed in much from Alexander the Great. Now, Aristotle's going to be a little bit different than his teacher, Plato. Plato was focusing much on the ideas of idealism, of truth, of form, and Aristotle's a little bit more scientific based. He's looking at the empirical data, at what's observable. But at the same time period, he said that happiness is the goal of life. One of the biggest teachings under Aristotle is going to be called the golden mean. And basically, whenever you're examining something, let's say you want to be a great conversationalist, there's always something in the middle. You can be a bore. You can be really boring. We all know those people, when you talk to them, they're really boring. And then you can have people that are buffoons. It's like the other side, right? That's where they're not deficient in a skill, but they're excessive in a skill. They're always joking and they're not serious and they won't shut up. He says that witty is the middle, that is the mean. These are people you want to converse with. He talks about bravery, right? You have the extreme, which is recklessness. And then you have the deficient behavior, which is cowardness, and then you have courage in the middle. So he says we should seek the golden mean in life. One of my favorite quotes from Aristotle, and I think it goes to the heart of his philosophy, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. He's also considered to be the father of logic, of rational thinking, of breaking it down. And that's what all the Greek philosophers do. They break it down. I hope we broke it down for you. So there you go, guys. I hope that you learned a little bit. I hope your brain's a little bit bigger. I hope you passed your test. And I hope you subscribe and watch more videos. How about that? I say it at the end of every lecture because I believe it with all my heart. Where attention goes, energy flows. We'll see you guys next time you press my buttons.
Okay, so now that you've watched the video and you've learned more about the great thinkers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, think about these questions. These are the questions on the top of page 294 in your student guide. What is good about life? How do we have a good life? What is justice? What is it possible to know with certainty? And what is the universe made of? So think about these questions. I'm not going to give you answers. These are your thought questions. I want you to really think about those and think about how Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle posed those questions to others in their time period. And then just a quick overview of Plato. He wrote an account of the trial of the Socrates called the Apology. His most famous dialogue was the Republic. He wrote dialogues featuring Socrates as the main speaker. He opened a school called the Academy. And he thought philosopher kings should govern the polis. Socrates believed that an unexamined life is not worth living. He died for his beliefs, and he taught by asking questions. And Aristotle is considered the father of political science. He was the brightest student of Plato. He developed logic based on syllogisms. He taught Alexander the Great, and he wanted to understand everything. So here we come to our vocabulary section. This is a little bit of a repeat of what we talked about with the governments, but I thought it was important to note. So aristocracy is ruled by a few. Again, that's kind of like an oligarchy. Anarchy is the absence of any law and order. It's ruled by a mob. Democracy is ruled by the people. It's ruled by many. And then a monarchy is ruled by one person, a king or a queen. Please remember to complete your reading pages 330 to 336. As always, we talk about these reading pages, tie together everything we do in class and what we learn in these flip video lessons. And here we come to our quote page. It's no surprise that I chose Aristotle for today's lesson. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. I want you to take a minute to really think about that quote. What a good quote and what a good way to view life. And here we come to the end of our flip video. The secret to your future is hidden in your daily routine. Thanks so much for joining me today.